Good evening, sports fans. Yep, I'll admit it. I've been MIA on the Daily News Collective website podcast for quite a while. I've had a fun month and a half of restoring power and plumbing after the ice storm, with plumbers still booked up until mid-April. I've been up to my ankles in broken PVC, and I am starting to consider maybe becoming a plumber. But the water is flowing again. Meanwhile, in my absence, Biden's war on America continued on.
This whole thing is illegal to begin with. You all should be citizen arrested for what you're doing. Shame on you aiding and abetting child trafficking.
The fact is that we're on a good path at the border under leadership of President Biden. It's about three things. It's about restructuring how we do what is happening there, because we were in a very bad situation under the Trump administration.
Earlier today, the Texas Health and Human Services Commission and the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services separately received tips that allege child abuse and neglect at the federal government's child migrant facility at the Freeman Coliseum in San Antonio behind me. These problems are a byproduct of President Biden's open border policies.
Hey, we need the police over here. They got a bunch of kids without their car seats. You're violating Texas law.
Who is this right here?
Hey,
you got no comment. See,
you got those children in there illegally.
You're about to run a human being over. Hey,
you got those children in there.
Who are you?
You got those smuggled children illegally.
Why should you be alarmed about the crisis on the United States southern border? Well, because history is repeating itself on purpose.
Yesterday, we watched literally hundreds of illegal migrants crossing the border and turning themselves into the Border Patrol. Groups in the company of children who were under 7 had their basic biometric information taken down and then dispatched to bus stations to continue into the United States.
We are in a battle for the very definition of who we are as a nation. Who are we? That is the question that our culture, our nation right now is asking. And people need to begin to rise up and begin to speak out and push back against the lunacy and the illogic that is being used right now to divide us.
The United States looks just like ancient Rome did in its final days. Of course, Rome didn't fall in a day, but when it finally received its death blow in 476 AD, its world power status had declined due to several corrosive reasons. Germanic tribes had beaten Roman forces into submission as Rome had overextended its military and its defense budget. Government corruption had reached epic proportions, and slave labor dried up, forcing the complacent, unskilled Romans to fend for themselves. Sound familiar?
Not many of us say to our sons and daughters, I'm hoping the day will come when you decide to go and pick fruit for a living. Hardly ever hear that.
One of the most often made arguments with regard to immigration is that they only do jobs that Americans don't want. But in a recent analysis, we actually looked at all 474 occupations as defined by the Department of Commerce and found that there were only 6 that were majority immigrant, and those jobs only account for about 1% of the U.S. workforce.
But the final knife in Rome's back was that it lost its identity. Most importantly, Rome allowed the barbarian hordes to settle within its borders, which eventually led to an uprising, putting an end to the identity of a 1,000-year-old world power civilization. Fast forward to 2021, and the United Nations has already decided for every citizen in the United States that over the next 50 years, you will need to be replaced by a foreign population.
As you know, the Secretary General has been concerned about this for a long time, and I'm very pleased that he's launched this program against xenophobia. If all of the recently arrived migrants in New York City were to form a city, they'd probably be the 3rd or 4th largest city in the United States.
As it reads from the United Nations' own website on replacement migration, United Nations projections indicate that over the next 50 years, the populations of virtually all countries will face population decline and population aging. The report considers replacement migration for 8 low-fertility countries: France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Republic of Korea, Russian Federation, United Kingdom, and the United States. Ask yourself, do we really need the United Nations' help? During the baby boom following World War II, nearly 80 million babies were born. And for some reason, we can't do that again.
Your child's school nearly doubled its enrollment.
The result? Classroom shortage.
There weren't enough classrooms and desks.
They gave my boy half a seat.
To give every student some kind of education, many schools had resorted to teaching kids in shifts.
Not too bad.
Students sat at their desks for just 2 hours and then went home.
Instead, bumbling, stumbling Joe Biden would have us all replaced in favor of a New World Order autocracy of which he is an acolyte and a puppet.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
His deceptive intentions are so transparent, a 5-year-old can read between the lines.
I think this generation can be marked by the competition between democracies and autocracies, because the world is changing so rapidly. The autocrats are betting on democracy not being able to generate the kind of unity needed to make decisions to get in that race.
The crisis on the border is brutally real. As the numbers stand, by the end of 2021, the death toll in illegal immigrants who died trying to cross the border and the American citizens who will die as a result of illegal immigrants oblivious to our laws will rise, pushing an already record-high nationwide homicide rate over the cliff. And there are even more dire implications than that.
The concern at all points in time is, who are we not apprehending? Right. If they, as we know, and we've heard from Border Patrol as we've been down here, that every day you see swells of people coming in to surrender to Border Patrol, and they know that at the same time those are decoy operations because others are coming in another location. So if we've been fortunate enough to apprehend now 6, by my count, persons whose names are on the terrorist watch list, how many have we not apprehended? Particularly if that's where they're devoting their effort, those would be the high-value people they want to get in.
Recently, Reuters reported Yemen's Houthi forces fired drones and missiles at the heart of Saudi Arabia's oil industry. The current flood of Yemeni terrorist gotaways could repeat the very same hell on earth that we witnessed during the Persian Gulf War on the state of Texas, which would send oil prices skyrocketing and our energy grid dangerously vulnerable. As Biden floods the border with potential criminals while simultaneously unveiling new gun restrictions and nominating a top gun control advocate to head the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives,
I want to see a national red flag law.
While waving his monstrous $2+ trillion Green New Deal infrastructure Trojan horse as America crawls out of a pandemic that could eventually wipe out 9 million small businesses, you can't help but conclude that America is being set up for annihilation. John Bowne reporting. Recent events concerning the current version of the President of the United States make the chaos at the border actually seem secondary. Now that Biden's homage to Gerald Ford and Hillary Clinton is begging for deeper analysis, regardless that there was a blanketed media blackout by the leftist media over his fall up the stairs to Air Force One due to what they clumsily described as wind-related, there's cautious, and then there's the gold medal performance of the Air Force One Olympic event that 78-year-old brain surgery survivor Biden, the leader of the dwindling free world, pulled off. The White House will obviously fabricate anything to cover up the unrelenting Biden train wreck. Of course, what can you expect from an administration riddled with chronic potheads?
I have a lot of respect for the vice president. He has sworn me into my office as a hero. This week I hear him literally say that I don't think we should legalize marijuana. I thought you might have been high when you said it. and let me tell you, because...
And as the international community, led by Russia and China, throw more logs on the Biden fire, blindsiding Joe's amateur administration with fire and brimstone.
I have to tell you, what I'm hearing is very different from what you described.
Well, I think we thought too well of the United States. We thought that the U.S. side will follow the necessary diplomatic protocols.
所以我们刚才必须阐明我们的立场。
So for China, it was necessary that we make our position clear.
我现在讲一句，你们没有资格在中国的面前说你们从实力的地位出发同中国谈话。
So let me say here that in front of the Chinese side, the United States does not have the qualification to say that it wants to speak to China from a position of strength.
I want to invite Biden to continue this discussion, but on condition that we do it live, online, without any delay, in an open, direct discussion. I think it would be interesting.
While the border is thrown into chaos.
Do you agree that Customs and Border Patrol encountered Border Protection encountered more than 100,000 individuals in February, which was a 173% increase from February 2020? Just yes or no?
The numbers with respect to February of this year are accurate.
Can you confirm that Customs and Border Protection's Donna facility was recently at over 700% capacity?
I don't have the precise figure. It was certainly over capacity, Mr. Ranking Member.
You said earlier in your testimony that the situation at the border is undoubtedly difficult. Well, given the tremendous rise and surge of individuals coming to the border, wouldn't it be fair to call it a crisis? Because that's what your agents are calling it.
Mr. Ranking Member, I'm not spending any time on the language that we use.
So we've known this is a crisis. What I learned in just the past hour shows that we are now dealing with a humanitarian disaster. What we learned in Midland just in the past hour is two things. One is they have no proven clean running water at the location. They were using well water that the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality has informed the federal government has not been proven to be safe. There's no telling what could be in there, including the possibility of arsenic. And then on top of that, more than 10% of the migrants at the Midland location have now tested positive for COVID-19.
The Biden administration, the president himself, promised to be incredibly transparent. So when can journalists enter these facilities? Why not tomorrow?
We are focused on our operations and the needs of the children. And at the same time, we are working to provide access to those Border Patrol facilities when we can do so.
As known terrorists are detained by an immigration department that can barely enforce anything under Biden's free-for-all Cloward and Piven onslaught.
People even on the terror watch list, people from Yemen and the Middle East are coming across the border now. So we really have a time problem here.
Leaving Americans to scratch their heads and wonder, did any terrorists actually make it through? This has to be the most miserable administration I've ever witnessed in my lifetime as an American citizen. And if you want a quick look at popular opinion, look no further than the like-dislike ratio on the White House YouTube channel. Mr. Biden, America is furious.
Well, I'm sick and tired of smart guys.
It should be blindingly obvious by now, Joe Biden is a complete liar.
We didn't lock people up in cages. We didn't separate families. I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. We're a nation that says if you want to flee and you're fleeing oppression, you should come.
And a lot of the migrants coming in saying they're coming in because you promised to make things better.
The idea that Joe Biden said come, because I heard the other day that they're coming because they know I'm a nice guy and I won't do what Trump did.
They're saying this.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal. They're not.
President Barack Obama said he believed the filibuster was a relic of the Jim Crow era. Do you agree?
Yes.
If not, why not abolish it if it's a relic of the Jim Crow era?
Successful electoral politics is the art of the possible.
But there must be a method to his increasing dementia.
I have never been particularly poor at calculating how to get things done in the United States Senate. So the best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to, anyway, we're going to get a lot done.
As those around him call all the shots, rendering the United States a full-blown corporatocracy with the executive power of our supposed republic in the hands of, well, who really knows?
And I'm happy to take questions if that's what I'm supposed to do, Nance, whatever you want me to do. And Ron, who am I turning this over to?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I think it's time for the press, our friends in the press to leave, though. Thank you.
Mr. President,
And now, by any means necessary, the foreign corporatocracy that owns Joe Biden wants to make the District of Columbia a state.
She won't answer these, and I think it's because there really is
she's
none.
happy to answer your questions.
A general question
Madam Chair, the witnesses on the other side have repeatedly kept our witnesses, especially the mayor of the District of Columbia, from fully answering questions, even though you have been generous.
Madam Chair, your side does that every time. Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
Even though you have been regular order.
But who would actually be the beneficiary of this super state?
How many electors of the district which are entitled under the 23rd Amendment are there?
3 electors, Congressman.
3 electors. And under the bill proposed, all of D.C. would become a state except a tiny sliver, which is the size of a park, which would become the federal district, correct?
That is correct, Congressman.
This new tiny area would become the nation's capital or the new seat of power. It would still have the 3 electoral votes for president and vice president, correct?
Under the terms of the 23rd Amendment, that is correct.
And the new seat of power under this scheme would only have within it the White House, the U.S. Capitol, and some other federal buildings and the National Mall and some monuments. Is that right?
That is my understanding. It's a very small area.
So really, the only permanent residence in this new created seat of power would be the president, occupied by Mr. Biden. Is that right?
It is certainly conceivable that the first family would be the only residents or one of only a handful of residents of this new area.
So is it your understanding Mr. Biden would become electors and would be voting in the Electoral College in the 2024 election and would be still entitled to 3 electoral votes? Is that correct?
But it is conceivable under the 23rd Amendment that, yes, the first family would potentially control 3 electoral college votes.
Biden's illegitimate legacy will be that of a useless career politician who attempted to seize the power of the free world and deliver it to his New World Order cohorts, who are hell-bent on destroying the American dream.
Maxwell had a personal and professional relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
I just shook my head and just it never really made sense to me that someone who, molested all these girls, because, he never denied that he did this. So it wasn't a question of whether he did it. It was a question of how did he get away with it.
Purposely failing children in any way is not an option. And yet there are some in society who have chosen to blatantly disregard this responsibility, using whatever means they have at their disposal to lure children into a life which they should never have been exposed.
The jail system let us down, the government let us down.
This whole case has been so corrupted and just so influenced by money and power. Justice definitely was never served.
Just when you thought the Epstein-Maxwell saga couldn't reek of more elitist wickedness, testimony from a Turkish national known anonymously as Jane Doe reads like a chapter from a Hunter S. Thompson novel. Ms. Doe, a married Muslim woman from Turkey, said she met Mr. Epstein and Ms. Maxwell at a barbecue hosted by her employer in late 2006 or early 2007. The employer is not named in the lawsuit, which states that Ms. Doe was told that Mr. Epstein wanted to buy or rent a property. Ms. Doe found a $10,000 a month rental for him. Ms. Doe, a trained hairdresser, allegedly went to his Palm Beach estate in January of 2008 to cut his hair. But when she got there, she claims Mr. Epstein was naked and proceeded to brutally rape her with Ms. Maxwell's help. The Miami Herald reported she attempted to leave, telling them she intended to report the rape. Maxwell, in response, claimed that she had already called the police. 2 men who claimed to be police officers arrived at Epstein's mansion and threatened to arrest Doe for prostitution, to take away her son and deport her, according to the suit. After the alleged abuse, the pair reportedly drove the woman to pick up her 8-year-old son and stopped the car at a large body of water that was infested with alligators. Epstein then ushered the plaintiff to the body of water and told her in explicit detail, as had happened to other girls in the past, she would end up in this body of water and be devoured by the alligators, should she ever reveal what Epstein had done to her. After the alligator threat, the suit alleges that Ms. Doe was checked into a hotel in Naples, Florida, where, over a period of several days, Epstein and Maxwell repeatedly raped and sexually abused the plaintiff, all in the presence of her son, according to the Telegraph. The Independent continues, Ms. Doe looked to be much younger than 26 and was told to tell men she was trafficked to that she was actually 17. The lawsuit adds that she was forced to have vaginal reconstructive surgery. It was carried out in a wealthy person's home by a man with a Russian accent in order to create the false impression that she was a virgin for a high-profile client, according to the lawsuit. The filing states that she was left with permanent injuries. Ms. Doe claims that she was trafficked over the next 5 months under threats of deportation, murder, arrest for prostitution, or that her son would be taken from her. Jane Doe's nightmarish tribulation details how any innocent person can be captured and enslaved by the hidden elite establishment, a power-mad few, immune to our laws due to their influence and the currency of corruption, using human beings for their own amusement. The Democrats want your guns if they are to transform our voting system into a means to seize the Senate with the rigged voting legislation of H.R. 1.
This bill is an attempt to destroy democracy by federalizing aspects of U.S. elections constitutionally delegated to the states. It would prohibit common sense voter ID rules, encourage ballot harvesting, require no excuse absentee and early voting, permit felons and non-citizens to vote, and make colleges and universities trusted voter registration agencies.
They'll need your guns if they are to turn D.C. into a fortress.
This threat is very concerning for authorities. It's chatter.
They will need the guns if they can no longer stop the media from exposing their agenda.
Please give dignity to the people.
So you work for the commissioner, your senior advisor. You were hired 2 weeks ago, and you're instructed to ask us to not have any pictures taken here.
Please respect the people,
because the political leadership at DHS does not want the American people to know it.
Please respect the rules,
You keep
sir.
standing in front of the pictures, so
Please
you don't want the
respect the
pictures taken. The rules are arbitrary, and
Please
they're designed to keep the American people in the dark.
dignity and respect.
I respect them, and I want to fix this situation.
We all want to fix
the
this, sir. We
administration
don't
you're
want
working
this to
for is
happen
responsible for these conditions.
Please respect the people with dignity and respect,
And
sir.
I ask you to respect the people as well. This
I am
is not
respecting you.
respect.
I am respecting the people.
This is not respect.
Stop! This is my property, dude.
Get off.
Excuse me. Come on, man. Come on. Why are you trying to do violence?
You guys
assault people?
And remove the filibusters to ram through anti-constitutional legislation favoring the United Nations Agenda 2030.
So governments must understand and balance national needs with the commitments made to Agenda 2030 to prevent development losses and stay on course on achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
They're going to have to take our guns. And so after 2 mass shootings, Joe Biden is coming for the assault rifles as a means to declaw the public against his tyranny.
As president, I'm going to use all the resources at my disposal to keep the American people safe.
But isn't the overwhelming growing tyranny of lockdowns, the support for nationwide leftist violence and destruction, the Hollywood culture's embrace of immorality,
the Lil Nas X mischief collaboration shoe?
Hey, does anybody else?
Sheesh.
And the media lapdog divisive racist rhetoric actually fueling a wave of Generation Z carnage?
All white people are racist. So
recent reports of teenagers carjacking random citizens begs the question, where is society headed?
Is it my gun? Shut it! Oh my God, somebody just stole it.
She's stealing their car.
Oh my God. Hey, come out.
Hey, they stole the car. They stole the car. These girls.
Who else?
That's it.
Everybody's out. Everybody step back from the car. I'm going to need everybody to step back from the car.
Please, my phone is in there.
No.
This area has been plagued with violent carjackings, and just in the last few months since the beginning of the year, 23 juveniles have been arrested in the city in carjackings. It's got to stop.
A brazen crime, all perpetrated by a 16-year-old girl who did plead guilty to aggravated robbery today in juvenile court.
The 21-year-old Atlanta shooter was a sex addict struggling with his religious vows. He wasn't a white supremacist targeting Asian Americans. The Boulder, Colorado shooter was a crazed Middle Eastern-born leftist. But that didn't stop the media from running with the dangerous narrative promoting a separate reality. And it is a barrage of false narratives and a lack of real leadership providing future generations with zero understanding of what is right and what is wrong. The worst part about the Illuminati globalist mind control propaganda spectacle of the Grammys is that after the horrible year America had endured, it would have been inspiring to witness the real musicians who won plenty of awards perform and speak to the public that supported them.
Stay tuned, because when we come back, Lil Baby gives a performance you do not want to miss.
But at this point, that is probably too much to ask the narcissistic hacks who have hijacked the soul of American music. The real award show would have gotten massive ratings if Grammy-winning legends Bobby Rush, Toots and the My Towels, John Prine, Chick Corea, and many others had been given a moment to receive their awards, some of them posthumously. Instead, American music's night looked more like a funeral in a brothel.
Hips tick tock when I dance. On that demon time, she might start her OnlyFans. Big B and that B stand for bands. If you wanna see some real, baby, here's your chance. I say left cheek, right cheek, drop it low this wine. Texas up in this thing.
Replete with awkward COVID-19 social distancing. Performances from talentless, immoral, demonic prostitutes.
7 days a week. Wet and cushion. Make that pull-out game weak.
Did you see that? Wow, Cardi B featuring Megan Thee Stallion. That was amazing. Wow, that was amazing. It's the whole thing. It's a giant shoe, and you got the giant bed. Look. Oh, and it's so soft. What is the thread count? This is amazing. Wow. Oh, guys, wait. I just realized something. This is a dream. This is a dream that I've had, to be in bed with Cardi B.
Brainwashing Black Lives Matter propaganda, normalizing the torching of America's small businesses.
When I was growing up, I was taught in American history books that Africa had no history, and neither did I. That I was a savage, about whom the less said the better, who had been saved by Europe and brought to America. And of course, I believed it. I didn't have much choice.
You can't fight fire with fire, I know, but at least we can turn up the flames on. You gotta pay attention to the signs. Seem like the fine following the blind.
It's a state of emergency. It's been a hell of a year. Hell for over 400 years. My people, it's time we stand. It's time we demand the freedom that this land promises. President Biden, we demand justice.
And of course, the now expected Illuminati music industry parade.
Blood in my lab wall, wish I could go off. I'm losing all. I let a canto, so Palo Santo. For all these demons, wish I could just go off.
All overseen by the self-proclaimed king and queen of Crowleyan magic, Beyonce and Jay-Z. Why has it come to this, you may ask? Because the potential of infinite freedom real American music represents must never be allowed out of its box, which is buried beneath the Grammy stage. Opening that box would spread truth far and wide to a populace that is craving it. John Bowne reporting. Thanks for tuning in to JonBownePolitix. Please subscribe if you haven't already at dailynewscollective.com. It is our mission to bring you some semblance of truth in this crumbling, once great republic that has spiraled into an ugly, corporocratic monoculture on the verge of disaster. You can find us at dailynewscollective.com. John Bowne reports on rumble.com. JonBownePolitix on YouTube while it's still there, Bowne Reports on Band.video, and as always, a big thanks to HCUniversalNetwork.com. Good night, America, wherever you are.